everyone and welcome back to my channel. So it is the end of August, which means it's time for my monthly wrap up where I discuss what I've read in August and what I thought of them. I'm also going to do my September TBR in this video just because I thought it would just be nice to link it all together, especially because some of the books I've already kind of mentioned that they're already on my TBR, I've just not got around to reading them just yet. So the first book I read this month was The Co-Worker by Freida McFadden, and I actually read this as part of my reading Freida McFadden books video. I give a bit of an in-depth review of what I thought in that video, so I'll link it in the description if you're interested. But this book is basically about two women who work in an office and one of them goes missing. The woman that goes missing is called Dawn, and she's quite strange and actually gets bullied by quite a lot of the people in the office. And yeah, it basically follows Natalie, who is the other woman in the office, trying to figure out what's happened. It's not my favourite Freida McFadden book, but I still really enjoyed it. It didn't have a big epilogue twist like I usually like, but I still loved it, although not many people actually like this book by Freida McFadden because they find the character of Dawn just a bit strange. But yeah, I really liked it. It was a good way to start off the month and I gave it 4 stars. The next book I read this month, I don't have a physical copy of because I borrowed it from the library, and that's To Kill a Mockingbird by Harper Lee. I read this as a book that Taylor Swift recommends and I will be doing a further video on that. I just need to actually read the last book that I'm planning to read for that video. I've been putting it off so much. So To Kill a Mockingbird is a classic and I've heard about it a lot throughout my life but didn't really know what it was about, and this book was very interesting. It follows a young girl who's kind of just getting through life, but her father is part of a big court case about sexual assault, but the defendant in the case is a black guy, and it basically kind of centres around racism. Excuse the barking, I am dog sitting. And Barney just finds it hilarious to bark at all the cars and birds outside apparently. I did think that this book was a really interesting read, especially because I was literally reading this book right during the week where all the riots were happening, and yeah, it was just a very interesting time to read a book like that. It was extremely harrowing reading about the racism. Because it was a classic, the language was quite hard to follow sometimes, but I still thought it was a really good book. I would have liked it to have just a bit more depth to it. Like, I would have liked to have seen more of the point of view of the family that was actually being affected by the racism, rather than just following the viewpoint of the little girl and her family. But the ending was really interesting and I rated it 3 stars. The next book I read in August you will be aware of if you've watched my Freida McFadden video, and that is Never Lie. I read this at the start of August and I'm still thinking about this book. I absolutely love it. And the fact that it's being adapted into a Netflix show, I don't know if it's a show or a film, but it's being adapted for Netflix and I am so excited. This is a book that I read within 24 hours, could not put it down, was full of twists that I thought I predicted but I didn't, and it was just amazing. It is literally one of the best books I've read this year, and if you want to kind of dip your toes into thrillers or Freida McFadden as an author, then I highly recommend this book. And of course, I rated it 5 stars. The next book I read in August was Then She Was Gone by Lisa Jewell. I have had this on my shelf for a while and I've heard really good things about this book and Lisa Jewell as an author, but I don't know, I wasn't really gravitating towards it, and I had other stuff on my TBR that I wanted to read before this. But then I randomly saw a TikTok about it and how people absolutely love this book, and I finally read the blurb because I hadn't even read the blurb yet, and I was straight away intrigued. This book is about a girl called Ellie who goes missing as a teenager, and it centres around Laurel, who is her mum, and she meets this stranger who has a 9-year-old daughter who looks exactly like Ellie. This book was really strange because it's very long and I literally could tell what was going to happen at every point in the book. I predicted every little twist, but I was still really intrigued. Like, it didn't put me off at all. Usually it does. When I predict a twist, I'm like, oh, great, that was kind of predictable. But it didn't bother me that much in this book. I just feel like the writing is so good and it really just sets up the reader. And the pacing was really good as well. It was a very dark book. I did get quite emotional, and I probably wouldn't want to read anything darker than this, but I still really enjoyed it, and I'm looking forward to reading some of Lisa Jewell's other books. It didn't quite wow me enough for 5 stars. I think maybe I would have needed something unexpected for it to be a 5-star book, but I did rate it 4 stars. Now, the next book I read this month was another unexpected read, and that is It Ends With Us by Colleen Hoover. Again, I've been putting this book off quite a lot just because it didn't really seem something that I would be interested in, but with the film coming out, I just really wanted to read it because I am that type of person that wants to read a book before I watch the film of it, and I'm very intrigued by the film because Blake Lively's in it. I'm actually midway through doing a reading vlog for this, so I won't go into too much detail. In my reading vlog you can literally see my reactions from start to finish of the book, and I'm also going to be adding on a clip of what I think about the film because as I'm recording this, I'm seeing the film tomorrow. But just for a brief summary, I'm very conflicted about this book. I did really enjoy it. I really liked the characters and it was easy to read, but there were just a couple of things that bothered me about it. The main character does diary entries to Ellen, and I found that just a bit strange. Also, some of the lines in this were so cringy. I'm not going to spoil any, but yeah, I just couldn't deal with the cringe sometimes. And also, this is a very hard-hitting book. If you don't know, it's about domestic abuse and domestic violence. And yeah, it's just very hard-hitting, and there are no trigger warnings whatsoever, at least not in my edition of the book, and I personally think that's a mistake. So I would definitely search up trigger warnings for this book before you read it if you're sensitive to anything. But yeah, those were the couple of things that kind of frustrated me about it. But I did still enjoy it and I rated it 3.5 stars. Now, because August is obviously a summer month in the UK, I really wanted to try and read a romance whilst, you know, the sun was shining, just because I thought it kind of fit the vibe of summer, and because of that, I picked Book Lovers by Emily Henry. I've read Happy Place by Emily Henry, and I thought it was okay. I think I rated it 3 stars. I'm just not really the biggest fan of romance books because I just feel like there isn't a lot of plot to them a lot of the time. It's just, oh, this character meets this character and they fall in love, and that's just not really my sort of thing. I prefer like more twists and turns and some darker things that come up in books. But I did really want to try and read a romance book in summer, and I managed to do that, although the weather hasn't completely been on my side. I did like this better than Happy Place, and I really like Emily Henry's writing. She just makes things so easy to read. She uses really interesting terminology, and yeah, I just absolutely love her writing. It's just such a shame that I don't like romance books that much because I feel like if she was to write in a different genre, I would absolutely love her books. I was quite intrigued by the characters. I especially really liked Charlie. One thing I do like about romance books when they get it right is when you fall in love with one of the characters. I had that with the Shatter Me series with Kenji, even though he wasn't the love interest, and I definitely felt like that with Charlie. But after I had read some really heavy books this month, this was kind of a nice breath of fresh air, just a nice happy book to contrast all the kind of dark and sad books that I'd read for the rest of the month. So it did kind of do its job in that respect. I just didn't find it the most interesting, although I did find it more interesting than Happy Place. And I also just love books that are about people who love books or that work in the book industry. I find that really interesting. But to summarise, this book is kind of like an enemies to lovers trope romance, so if you're into that thing, then I definitely recommend this. And even though I'm not the biggest romance fan, I did still enjoy it, and I rated it 3.5 stars. So the last book I've read in August, I've technically not finished yet. I'm filming this on a penultimate day of August, and I know that I'm not going to be able to film again for a little while, so I thought I'll film it now even though I've not completely finished it, but I know that I will finish this by tomorrow, and that is Misery by Stephen King. So yeah, I'm on page 250 and I think there's around 370 pages in this book, so I'll probably get most of the way through it tonight and then definitely finish it tomorrow. But I wanted to make sure that I still got to mention it in this video because it is what I'm reading in August. This is my first Stephen King book, and I have been so intrigued by Stephen King's writing, especially because I'm a big lover of like psychological thrillers and horrors in books. And yeah, I've never read a Stephen King book and I don't even know why, so I borrowed this off a friend and I've just been so intrigued by it. This book is about an author who gets into a car accident and then is kidnapped by his biggest fan. And his biggest fan is basically like torturing him and wants him to write her a special book because she's not happy about how one of her favourite books by him ended. I just read quite a few pages before I started filming this video, and it has taken a really dark turn, but I'm just so intrigued by it, and I have never read a book like this before. The way that Stephen King writes is so unique, and it has made me so intrigued for the rest of his books. It has turned very gruesome, which I'm not usually a fan of, so I think when I pick my next book that I'm going to read by him, I'm going to try and pick a not so gruesome one, just because I'm a bit of a wimp when it comes to like gore. But I am still really enjoying this, and it's making me think a lot, and just the way it's written is so interesting that I just have to read more by him. I obviously can't really give my rating on this yet, but it's looking like a 4-star book at the moment, but we'll see because I don't know what's going to happen in the ending. I literally have no idea where this book is leading at all. Also, this is quite an old edition of the book, and it says that it was £3.50 on the back. I wish that books were still £3.50. So those are the books that I read in August. I did have a very busy month with me finishing my level 3 and finishing my job, and I'm going to be starting my new job very soon. So I didn't read as much as I usually do, but I am kind of aware that how many books I read is kind of going to keep declining because I'm starting my new job. But I definitely had a good range of books that I read and a range of ratings as well. So onto my TBR for September. I have tried to not pick as many books as I usually do for my TBRs. And I've also switched it up a little bit because I keep failing my TBRs, and I think it's because I'm just not actually generally feeling the books that I'm putting on my TBRs. I keep saying, oh, I need to finish this series, or oh, I need to read that book, it's been on my shelf for a long time, rather than actually just going off of the feeling of what I want to read. So I have switched it up a little bit, and also I'm kind of going with kind of the autumn vibes. I want to make sure I'm reading some books that kind of fit into, you know, the autumnal kind of vibe. So the first book has been on my TBR for a while, and that is Gone Girl. I think it's the length of this book that's kind of putting me off from reading it. But apparently it's a really good film and an even better book, so I really just need to read this. But this is the last book that I've got to read for my next Taylor Swift recommendations video, so I will be reading this month. I'm really trying to convince myself to read it. The next book on my TBR is also one that I've been trying to read for a while, and that is If He Had Been With Me by Lauren Owlin. I think it's because I can't really think of the vibe that this book's going to be. It seems like it's a romance, but also with like maybe a bit of mystery. I don't really know. I think I just need to get over it and read it. But also one of the characters is called Autumn, and I just kind of think that's perfect for like a September-October read. But this is one of those books that even with reading the blurb, I still can't really tell what it's about. It just seems like a romance, but I don't know. We'll see. Now, the next book on my September TBR, I don't even know why I've not read it yet because I've heard so many good things about it and I'm so intrigued, is The House Across the Lake by Riley Sager. I actually watched a Hayley Fan video recently where she said that this was one of her favourite books of all time, and I just need to read it. I'm so intrigued by Riley Sager's books. They just seem like books that would be right up my alley. And this book is about a character called Casey who has basically gone to her lake house to mourn for her late husband, but she is interested by a couple across the lake. It doesn't really give much more insight than that, but I am so intrigued by this, and I just know that I have to read it this month. Now, the next 2 books on my September TBR are courtesy of a lovely Waterstones employee who basically just sold these 2 books for me because I'm easily persuaded, it seems like. And the first one is What You Are Looking For Is in the Library. And I've got no idea how to say this author's name, but I think it's Michiko Ayama? Probably butchered that. And again, I've got no idea what this book is about. It just looked cute. And whilst I was looking at it, the employee came up to me and said that it was absolutely amazing. It's a really short book as well, it just seems like nice vibes, and from my understanding it's a translated fiction, and I have not read a translated fiction before. Two genres that I am really intrigued by reading are translated fiction and historical fiction. So when I saw this and the employee said it was really good, I thought, why not? So I'm very intrigued to read this and review it because I genuinely have no idea what it's about. It just looks really cute. And again, it seems like it's about books, and I love books about books. Then because I got this in Waterstones for the buy one get one half price, I of course had to get another one because that's how things work. And the one that caught my eye was The Fury by Alex Michaelides. Still have no idea how to say that name. And this was written by the same author that wrote The Silent Patient, which I really enjoyed, and I think I gave it 4 stars. And again, whilst I was looking at this, the Waterstones employee came up to me and said that this is such a good book. She described it as the characters being stuck on an island whilst a storm was raging, and the storm is called The Fury. And yeah, just a lot unravels from that. Again, it sounds right up my alley. It's kind of giving me Shutter Island vibes. I'm not sure if that will actually be true when I read it, but yeah, it just sounds amazing, and I absolutely love The Silent Patient, so I'm very intrigued by this. And I do technically have one more book on my TBR, but I don't actually know what it is yet. I know that makes no sense whatsoever, but basically I am going to be part of a book club. I have been interested in being part of a book club for a while, but I didn't really know how to approach it. And I found this book club called Chapter 25. So Chapter 25 is a book club who basically just do meetups all over the UK. They also have virtual meetups as well, which I found really fun. And I discovered that they were starting up a new book club in my area, and I registered interest at first to be part of the book club, but then an opportunity came up for a host. And I decided, you know what, I love books, I really want to be part of a book club, maybe hosting will be kind of fun. And I am so excited that I'm going to be the book club host for my area and that it is going live this weekend. So basically, yeah, I'm going to have another book to read this month for the book club. I don't know what it is yet, but I will find out within the next couple of days, and I'm so excited to read it and then be able to talk to a bunch of people about it. If you are interested in Chapter 25, as I said, they've got multiple book clubs all across the country and they are constantly expanding, and also do virtual book clubs, so I will leave a link in the description for that. But yeah, I am actually really excited about my September TBR. I feel like I've got not really much of a range, but these are all books that I really want to read, and hopefully I will succeed a bit more at them because they are books that I am desperate to read rather than just going off books I feel like I should read. But let me know in the comments what you read this month and what's on your TBR. I'd be really interested to hear. I've also finally set up a Bookstagram, so I will leave the link to that in the description. And of course my TikTok and Goodreads will be down there as well. But thank you so much for watching, and I'll see you later.